The rain fell in a light mist over Manhattan's wealthiest street, the kind where town cars lined the curb and glass towers scraped the clouds. Evelyn Ross stepped out of the building with a firm stride, her emerald green suit gleaming against the gray sky. Her heels clicked against the wet pavement as her assistant trailed behind her, rattling off tomorrow's schedule. Evelyn wasn't listening. She had just sealed a $40 million deal over lunch. A slight smirk touched her lips. Billionaires didn't have to listen. They made people listen. As she turned the corner toward her private car, her phone buzzed. She barely glanced down. That's when a small figure stepped in front of her path. A black boy, maybe 6 or 7. Barefoot. Dirt smudged his cheeks. His shirt was torn at the collar, clinging to his narrow chest. But what stopped Evelyn wasn't his appearance. It was his voice. "You'll die tomorrow," he said. Evelyn blinked. The assistant stopped mid-sentence. A horn honked in the distance, but in that moment, the street seemed to go quiet. "Excuse me?" Evelyn asked, her brow arching. The boy stood firm. "Don't get in your car, please." Evelyn laughed. It started small, a breathy chuckle. Then she tilted her head back and let out a full, sharp laugh that echoed against the buildings. "Let me guess," she said. "You're doing some kind of street performance?" The boy didn't answer. His eyes stayed locked on hers, wide and steady. "You trying to scare me, kid? Is this how you hustle rich people out here? Real original?" She leaned in just slightly. "You picked the wrong woman." The boy didn't flinch. His voice dropped to a whisper. "I'm warning you. A shadow's following you. If you get in your car, it happens." A strange, cold weight dropped in Evelyn's chest, but she shook it off. "I have 10 meetings tomorrow," she said flatly, "and 0 time for ghost stories." She turned away, her heels striking harder now. Her assistant tried to catch up, glancing back at the boy. Evelyn didn't look back, but for the first time in years, her smile didn't return. Not right away. She got in her car moments later. Leather seats. Heated. Her driver nodded at her in the rear view, but before the door shut, she glanced once out the tinted window. The boy was still standing there, barefoot in the rain, watching her. And for just a moment, Evelyn Ross, the woman who sat on 3 corporate boards, who owned properties in London, Vancouver, and Malibu, felt something she hadn't felt in years. A flicker of something she didn't dare name. Not fear, number, just something she couldn't explain. The city lights shimmered across the wet pavement as Evelyn's car pulled into the underground parking of her penthouse tower. Everything about the building screamed exclusivity, from the private elevator to the concierge who greeted her by name without making eye contact. She stepped out of the car and brushed a droplet of water off her shoulder. The boy's voice echoed faintly in her mind. "You'll die tomorrow." She shook her head. Upstairs, her penthouse looked like a magazine spread. Glass walls, gold fixtures, abstract art she didn't even like, but had paid 6 figures for. The silence was her favorite part. She tossed her bag on the marble counter and poured herself a glass of Merlot. On the television, muted stock tickers scrolled past. The market had done well today. She'd made enough to pay for 10 more paintings. She leaned against the window, sipping slowly, watching the streets below. "That little boy," she said under her breath. "What a performance." She smirked, but the smile didn't stay. Her assistant had texted an hour ago. "Want me to file a report about that kid loitering near the building?" Evelyn hadn't replied. What would she even say? That a barefoot child claimed a billionaire would die tomorrow? Absurd. Still, she kept glancing at the dark corners of the room. Her phone buzzed again, a security alert from the building's system. Unrecognized movement detected in rear service hallway. She dismissed it. The system overreacts to everything. She walked into her closet and peeled off the blazer. Her reflection caught her eye. Something in her posture looked guarded. Office. She reached for her robe and sat on the edge of her bed. The boy's words wouldn't leave her. His eyes. They weren't begging. They weren't afraid. They were certain. She shook her head again and laughed. More force this time. What is this? Guilt? Superstition? The wine glass trembled slightly in her hand as she set it down. She picked up her tablet and reviewed tomorrow's schedule. 3 investor meetings. Lunch at the club. Afternoon at the studio with the new architect. No time for fear. No room for fairy tales. The world she lived in didn't bend for sidewalk kids. But just as she reached to plug in her phone, the power flickered. A single, quick blink, then back. She stared at the ceiling. The rain had started again, harder this time. And somewhere between the storm and the silence, Evelyn Ross pulled the blanket higher over her lap. Just for a moment. Just until that flicker left her chest. The next morning, Evelyn Ross stood in front of her mirror, brushing a hint of concealer under her eyes. She hadn't slept well, not that she'd admit it. Her hair was styled to perfection. Her suit was sharp, navy blue, crisp lines. Her heels clicked once on the marble as she stepped back. Her assistant buzzed through her earpiece. "Car's waiting, ma'am. Route's clear." "Good," she replied, grabbing her briefcase. As the elevator doors closed behind her, she caught a glimpse of her reflection again. Calm, in control, untouchable. Just like always. But in the back of her mind, his voice crept in. "You'll die tomorrow. Don't get in your car." She exhaled sharply. Ridiculous. The black Audi waited curbside, door already opened by her driver. He gave a polite nod. "Good morning, Ms. Ross." She hesitated. It lasted only half a second, just long enough for the driver to notice. "You all right, ma'am?" She straightened her back and stepped in. "Let's go." The car pulled into traffic. Rain dotted the windows, making the city blur in long streaks of gray and silver. Evelyn scrolled through her phone, market reports, board updates, messages from her lawyer. Then came the sound. A long, angry horn blast. The driver swore under his breath. "Hold on!" Evelyn looked up. A truck was barreling through the intersection ahead. Massive, out of lane, moving too fast. The driver jerked the wheel. Tires screamed. Evelyn's shoulder slammed into the door. A sickening screech of metal filled the air as the Audi swerved just in time to avoid the truck's front end. The massive vehicle missed them by inches before crashing into a barrier on the side. The Audi spun slightly, then skidded to a stop. Evelyn sat frozen. Her hands trembled in her lap. Her chest heaved. She looked out the window at the twisted wreck of the truck. People were yelling outside. The driver was speaking, but she couldn't hear him. Her pulse thundered in her ears. "Don't get in your car today." The boy's voice came back louder than ever. Her driver turned toward her. "Ms. Ross, are you okay?" She didn't answer right away. Then finally, in a low voice, "Go home." "Ma'am?" "Now. Turn the car around." The driver nodded quickly and pulled away. Evelyn stared straight ahead, her hands now clenched tight in her lap. The city looked different now. The glass, the towers, the people. Everything had edges. Everything looked sharp. Because for the first time in years, Evelyn Ross had no control. And the only person who'd seen it coming was a child in rags. The elevator doors slid open to the 47th floor, and Evelyn Ross stepped out without a word. Her heels echoed across the hardwood, but this time there was no rhythm in her stride, just tension. Her assistant stood waiting, tablet in hand, but Evelyn brushed past her. "Clear the rest of my day," she muttered. "Everything?" "Yes, and get security up here, now." She walked straight to the bar, poured herself a drink with an unsteady hand, and downed half in one gulp. The room was quiet except for the distant hum of the rain outside. Her phone buzzed, another alert. Increased movement, near vehicle. Threat assessment. High. She stared at it, then slammed the phone on the counter. That boy knew. That wasn't luck. That wasn't coincidence. She picked up the phone again and dialed fast. "Find him," she told her assistant. "The boy from yesterday. I don't care how. Search the area. Pay anyone you need. Just bring him here." There was a pause on the other end. "You want to find the homeless kid?" "Yes. Now." Evelyn ended the call and sank into the leather couch, one hand over her mouth. Her heart was racing again, not from fear, from helplessness. And she hated that more than anything. By evening, the rain had stopped, but the sky stayed gray. She sat in silence for hours, eyes fixed on the glass wall, watching the city breathe beneath her. But all she could see was that boy's face, the dirt on his skin, the clarity in his eyes. Then, a knock. Her assistant's voice came through the intercom. "Ms. Ross, we found him." Evelyn leapt up. She rushed to the door and opened it. There he was, same tattered shirt, same bare feet. He looked up at her, face tired, small shoulders tense, but his eyes still steady, like he had already seen this moment before. Evelyn's throat tightened. She stepped back and dropped to one knee. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "for before, for what I said. I should have listened." The boy didn't speak. She looked at him, her voice trembling. "Please, tell me how you knew. What's happening?" There was a long pause. Then he spoke, soft and quiet. "My name is Malik." She nodded slowly. "I see things sometimes," he said, "when I sleep on the street. I don't know why, but I dream, and in the dreams I see bad things, people who won't wake up again." Evelyn stared at him, stunned. "You saw me?" He nodded. "Last night, I saw your face, a car, a crash, and something else." He looked down. "What?" she asked. "There were men," he said, "waiting, not just the truck. They were watching your building, your car." Evelyn's blood ran cold. She sat back on her heels. Her hands were shaking again. "They wanted to rob you," Malik added. "But I don't think that's all. They wanted to take you." She looked away, jaw clenched. This couldn't be real. But the near crash, the alerts, her own fear, it all lined up. "Why me?" she asked, almost to herself. Malik shrugged. "I don't know. I just see it before it happens." He looked up at her again. "If you get in your car tomorrow, you won't live." Evelyn stared at him. Her voice came out as a whisper. What do I do? Stay here, he said quietly. Tonight, you're safe. But tomorrow, they'll come. She stood up slowly and nodded. Then you stay, too. Please, just for tonight. Malik shifted, uncomfortable. I don't belong here. Evelyn looked at him with something close to desperation. You saved my life. You belong here now. She reached for a towel and wrapped it gently around his shoulders. For the first time since morning, she felt her heart begin to slow. But the fear hadn't left. It had only changed its shape. The penthouse lights dimmed as the city outside slipped into night. Malik sat curled up on the far end of the massive leather sofa, a blanket over his shoulders, eyes scanning the room like he was still outside. Evelyn stood near the window, her arms crossed, staring into the dark. Neither of them had spoken for several minutes. Her phone buzzed again. Another alert. Unusual motion near private garage entrance. Possible surveillance activity. She didn't say anything out loud, but her jaw tightened. Is this what you saw? She asked, still looking out. Malik nodded. Not all of it. Just flashes. You, that truck, and men with masks waiting by your car. Evelyn turned toward him. Why didn't you tell someone else? A cop? A shelter? He looked down. They don't listen. They look at me like I'm lying. Or crazy. She sat across from him, her voice softer. But I listened. No, he said. You laughed. The words hit like a slap. She didn't argue. She just sat back, letting that truth settle. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a live update from her private security team. 2 unknown individuals were spotted near her car, parked beneath the building. They'd fled when approached. Police were now involved. Evelyn stared at the screen, her hands cold. They were real, she whispered. Malik didn't respond. He didn't need to. She stood up and began pacing. How is this happening? I have private security, cameras, gated access. Nobody's supposed to get close to me. Malik's voice was steady. They weren't coming for you like other people. They weren't going to steal your bag. They were going to take you. For money. Maybe worse. Evelyn turned sharply. Why are you the only one who saw it coming? I don't know, he said. It started after my mom died. That stopped her. She was sick, he continued. We didn't have money. I slept on the floor next to her. One night, I had a dream she'd leave and never come back. Next day, she was gone. He stared down at his hands. Since then, it just happens. I see people who won't make it. Not all the time, but sometimes. Like you. Evelyn's throat felt tight. The same pressure she'd felt after the near crash now returned, not from fear this time, but from something deeper. Guilt and awe. She sat down beside him. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. Then she asked, Why did you warn me? You don't even know me. He looked up at her, tired but sincere. You looked like someone who wouldn't believe me, but I still hoped you would. Evelyn blinked, unsure what to say. Malik laid his head back against the cushion. They'll come tomorrow, not tonight. You're okay now. She watched him close his eyes. For the first time in her adult life, Evelyn Ross, billionaire, board member, name on skyscrapers, was completely still. She wasn't planning a merger. She wasn't thinking of tomorrow's market. She was watching a barefoot black boy fall asleep on her couch, the only person in the world who had tried to save her. And succeeded. Morning came slow and gray. The sky outside the penthouse was thick with fog, casting a cold light across the floor. Evelyn sat in the same spot, still in last night's clothes, her eyes heavy. She hadn't slept, not even for a second. Malik stirred on the couch. He blinked a few times, then sat up, the blanket still wrapped around him. Evelyn looked over at him. "You slept okay?" He nodded slowly. Before she could say more, her phone lit up, a call from her head of security. She answered quickly. "2 suspects confirmed," the voice said. "They were loitering around your car last night, armed. We scared them off, but they had masks, gloves, the works." Evelyn's voice caught. "They were waiting for me." "Yes, ma'am. Police believe it was a planned robbery, possibly a kidnapping for ransom attempt. You're lucky you didn't leave the building." She ended the call without saying goodbye. "Lucky?" She looked at Malik. He didn't look surprised. She sat down beside him again, this time slower, more deliberate. She studied his face, tired, young, but steady, like he carried something no child should. "I owe you everything," she whispered. Malik didn't respond. His eyes were fixed on the skyline, still hidden by clouds. Evelyn turned to him. "Can I ask, how long have you been on your own?" He shrugged. "Since I was 5. After my mom died, no one came." "No father?" Malik shook his head. "What about the system? Foster care?" "They tried. I ran. They were worse." Evelyn exhaled, a slow, shaky breath. He continued, his voice flat. "I sleep in church steps, alleys, sometimes near restaurants. I don't stay long anywhere. People don't want me around." "But you helped them," she said quietly. "You saved me." He shrugged again. "Most people don't believe. They don't listen." She looked down at her hands. "I didn't either." Malik didn't answer. He didn't have to. The silence between them was heavy, not awkward, but thick with everything that didn't need to be said. Evelyn stood and walked to the kitchen. She returned with a warm croissant, wrapped in a napkin, and placed it in front of him. Malik looked at it, then back at her. "It's yours," she said. He picked it up slowly, like it might disappear. He took a small bite, then another. She watched him eat. He didn't rush. "You ever dream something good?" she asked. He paused, mid-bite. "Once." "What was it?" "I dreamed I lived in a place with a bed. A soft one. No noise. Just silence. And someone asked me what I wanted to eat. Not what I'd take." Evelyn's throat tightened again. "Did you ever find that place?" she asked. He shook his head. "I wake up before I get to it." She didn't say anything for a while, just sat beside him, watching the fog outside begin to lift. In the silence, something inside her shifted, not because of what she almost lost, but because of who had saved her. And the world he came from. A world she had never seen. Until now. The sun finally broke through the clouds by noon, casting gold streaks over the skyline. The fog lifted slowly, revealing the city Evelyn Ross had always ruled from above. But today, she didn't feel like she was looking down on it. She felt like she was seeing it, clearly, for the first time. Malik stood by the window, barefoot still, wrapped in the same blanket. His small frame looked almost weightless against the towering view, but his presence had changed everything. Evelyn's phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't security. It was her lawyer. She answered with a calm voice. "I want to make arrangements. I need emergency guardianship papers. For a minor." Her lawyer hesitated. A relative? Number. But he saved my life, and I think it's time I try to save his. She hung up and looked at Malik, who was now staring down at the streets below. I called someone, she said. Not police, not CPS. Someone who can help make this official. Malik turned to her, confused. You're sending me away? She shook her head. Number, I'm asking if you'll stay. He didn't answer right away, just looked at her, eyes guarded. Why? She walked closer. Because what you did for me, I can never repay. But I can try to make sure you don't have to sleep on church steps anymore. I'm not used to this, he said softly. You shouldn't have to be, she replied. There was a knock at the door, her assistant. I brought what you asked for, Ms. Ross. A small bag of clothes, shoes, toothbrush, essentials. Evelyn took it and placed it on the armrest near Malik. These are yours. No strings, no rules, just yours. He didn't move at first. Then slowly, he stepped forward, touched the bag, looked at her again. This a dream? He asked. She smiled gently. If it is, let's not wake up yet. Malik nodded once, quiet and small, then sat on the couch with the bag beside him. He didn't open it right away, just held on to it, like it might vanish if he blinked. Evelyn sat down too, but at a distance. Not to control, just to be there. Hours passed. The city returned to its usual rhythm outside. Cars, noise, money, motion. But inside that penthouse, something rare happened. Something small and quiet and powerful. Two people who didn't belong in each other's world did. Evelyn broke the silence one last time. You'll never be alone again, she said. Malik didn't look at her, just whispered back, I know. And outside, the world moved on, unaware that a barefoot black child had once stood in the rain and saved a billionaire's life, and changed her forever.